From yard to the world. Knowledge, culture, sound.
Turn it up. Feel a fire inside.
Tune in now.
It's up full vibe. It's up full vibe.
Up full vibes.
You know, we spend just a ridiculous amount of time in this industry obsessing over the intangible stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we'll argue for hours about whether a specific plugin actually has, true analog warmth.
Right, or losing sleep over snare compression.
Exactly. We treat mix revisions like they are literal life or death situations. And we do these deep dives on gain staging or marketing strategies for your release. But there is this massive unspoken reality hanging over every single producer, engineer, and songwriter out there.
And it's the variable that can derail your career faster than a bad contract.
Right.
Or, a leaked album.
Yes. It's the thing nobody wants to talk about until they're like 3 drinks deep at a rap party.
Your relationship status.
Ooh, your relationship status. So we are looking at a source today that argues, and I think quite convincingly, honestly, that who you choose to date isn't just a personal preference, it is a business decision.
A critical business decision.
The quote from the text that really set the stage for me was this one. Your choice of partner can make or break your career just as fast as a hit record.
It's a heavy claim. But when you look at the source material we're digging into today, it totally holds water.
It really does.
We are unpacking this piece from Dub Corner. It's titled Love, Loops, and Loss, a producer's survival guide to dating in the music industry. This dropped in February 2026, and I have to say right off the bat, this does not read like a typical dating advice column.
No, not as
It reads more like a war journal from the front lines.
It's incredibly gritty. And I think it's really important to establish who is actually giving this advice because, in the music industry, credibility is literally everything.
Right. If this was written by a first-year intern, we'd just toss it.
Exactly. But the author here claims over 18 years in the game.
And not just sitting on the sidelines either. They specifically mention working with heavy hitters, people like Sean Kingston, Chronix.
And real deal artists.
Yeah, this is someone who has survived the actual trenches of the industry, the late nights, the grueling tours, the completely volatile income streams. And they make a point to say that they've seen more relationships crash and burn than failed album releases.
This is wild.
When you consider the failure rate of albums in this business, that is a staggering statistic.
It really puts it in perspective. So our mission for this deep dive is to basically strip away that Instagram gloss. Yeah. We always see the power couples on the red carpet looking perfect, but we rarely get to see the mechanics of how those relationships actually survive behind the scenes. Or how they don't.
Usually how they don't.
Right. We're going to break down what the author calls the muse dynamic versus the outsider dynamic. We'll look at the absolute minefield that is the Los Angeles dating scene. And then finally, the cold, hard business of protecting your publishing when things go south.
And I think it's important to note the tone the author takes throughout this piece. It's definitely empathetic, but it is brutally realistic.
Yeah, no sugarcoating.
None. There is no sugarcoating the fact that the music lifestyle is fundamentally hostile to stability.
So let's jump straight into the first major archetype the author presents, the muse.
The classic power couple fantasy.
Exactly. You're a producer, you meet this incredible singer, you lock eyes across a mixing console, and suddenly you think you're the next Jay-Z and Beyoncé. On paper, it seems like the ultimate setup. I mean, why wouldn't you want to date someone who just gets it?
Because there is a very specific intoxication to that dynamic. The author calls it the shared language advantage.
Which makes sense.
Think about it. If you are a producer, your work is your entire life. If you date a civilian, you spend half your time translating what you do. But with a singer or another artist,
You can just talk normally.
right. You can say, hey, I need to stay late. The pocket on that bass line is off. Or we need to layer the harmonies on the bridge. And they don't look at you like you're speaking alien. They just nod. They inherently understand.
That understanding is huge. The source actually mentions that feeling of creating legacy work together. There's something undeniably romantic about building a catalog with the person you love.
Oh, for sure.
It's not just, hey, honey, how was work today? It's, look at this incredible thing we made together.
Plus, the author points out a really practical benefit here. If you completely disappear for 72 hours during mixing season, a fellow artist isn't going to call the police or assume you're cheating on them.
Right. They know you're just in the zone. They understand the why behind your absence.
Yeah.
And here is where the real talk really kicks in from the article. The source pivots hard to the downsides of this setup.
The dark side of the muse.
Exactly. The author describes this dynamic as intoxicating until it becomes toxic. And the root cause they identify is fascinating. It's actually not about the lack of time, it's about the collision of egos.
Two creatives, one relationship. That is a whole lot of main character energy in one house. Exactly. You have two people chasing the exact same dream, often fighting for the exact same limited resources. Who gets the prime studio time? Who gets the mental bandwidth at the end of the day?
Right.
But it goes way deeper than just scheduling conflicts. The author highlights the massive danger of professional feedback feeling like a personal attack. Imagine you are producing your partner's track. You tell them, hey, that melody is a bit flat, let's try it again.
Oof. Yeah. Because in a normal session with a standard client, that's just basic production. You're just trying to get the best take.
Right.
But coming from your boyfriend or girlfriend.
Precisely. The partner hears, you're not talented, or you don't believe in me. The lines between producer and partner get completely blurred.
It's a minefield.
And the author notes that if the singer wants to work with another producer to get a different sound, which, by the way, is a totally normal career move, the producer partner almost always interprets that as a betrayal.
It becomes, why isn't my sound good enough for you? That actually leads right into the jealousy aspect, which really stood out to me in the text. The author talks about what happens when one person in the relationship pops and the other doesn't.
That is the brutal reality of the industry. Success is almost never simultaneous. If your partner's single, takes off, they go on tour, they get the press junkets, and you are still grinding away in the basement studio, the dynamic shifts overnight.
You stop being the hitmaker partner.
And you start being treated by the industry as the plus one.
Being the plus one when you have your own serious career ambitions, that has to be an absolute ego killer. You're walking the red carpet, holding the posts, while the photographers are literally yelling at you to get out of the shot.
It destroys relationships. The author is very clear about this. They write, jealousy will wreck a relationship faster than a failed record deal. You start resenting their success, or they start viewing you as dead weight.
So what is the survival strategy here? If you're going to date a muse?
The advice from the source is incredibly strict. Boundaries.
Boundaries is such a popular therapy buzzword right now, but what does that actually look like in a studio environment?
The author suggests you should not produce their entire album.
Wow.
It sounds counterintuitive, right? But you need to keep your projects somewhat separate to maintain your individual identities. And they add this major caveat, quote, do not produce her entire album unless you are ready for counseling.
That's a great line.
You have to protect the relationship from the work itself.
That is solid advice.
Yeah.
So you read that, you see the danger of the muse, and you think, okay, fine, I'll go the complete opposite direction. I'll date a civilian. The outsider. Someone who thinks a stem is just part of a flower.
The outsider advantage. And look, there is a massive appeal here. The author describes it as a vacation from the chaos.
I love that phrasing, a vacation.
Yeah.
Because this person does not care about your Spotify streams. They don't care about your placement on the Billboard Top 100. They just want to know if you actually ate lunch today.
That grounding is essential. In an industry where literally everyone is chasing clout, having someone who loves you for you, not for your discography, is incredibly valuable. It anchors you to reality.
Right.
But the source argues that this piece comes at a high price, and that price is what they call the communication gap.
This is the part of the article that made me wince a little because it just felt so real, the disconnect.
It's fundamentally a translation issue. The author gives this really vivid example.
Yeah.
You come home at 4 a.m., you smell like studio air, which, if you know, you know.
Okay.
It's stale coffee, maybe some smoke, sweat, pure stress. And maybe you also smell like someone else's perfume because you've been crammed in a tight vocal booth with a vocalist for 6 hours trying to comp a track.
Right.
To a civilian, that looks exactly like cheating, but to a producer, that's just a random Tuesday.
Yes. And trying to explain that, saying, no, baby, I wasn't out partying. I was literally EQing a kick drum for 4 hours straight. It sounds ridiculous if you aren't in a life. It sounds like a bad lie.
It really does. And it's not just the trust test that's the issue. It's the time conflict. Civilians usually operate in a standard 9-to-5 reality. Work stays at the office. Evenings and weekends are reserved for the relationship.
But for a creative, the work is whenever inspiration hits.
Exactly. If you cancel date night because a label exec needs revisions right now, a civilian partner hears, work is more important than me.
And you can't really explain to them that if you don't do those revisions tonight, you might not get paid for another 6 months. The stakes just feel completely different. The civilians don't inherently get the extreme urgency of the music industry.
They don't. Bridging that lifestyle gap is exhausting. So the fix the author proposes for this is over-communication. You have to over-explain and over-reassure constantly.
Like what? Sending photos from the studio board.
More than that, it's about articulating your process, saying, I am going into a tunnel for 3 days to finish this mix. I love you. I will be back to reality on Thursday.
Setting the expectation.
Yes. If they can't physically see the work you're doing, they must feel your commitment elsewhere. You have to bridge that gap proactively, or the outsider relationship simply suffocates. You literally have to teach them how your industry works so they don't end up resenting it.
Okay, so we've got the muse and the outsider dynamics down,
Yeah.
but now we have to talk about the actual battlefield itself. The author has a specific section dedicated to the geography of the industry, the LA trap.
This is where the source gets very specific about the culture of Los Angeles, though I'd argue this probably applies to New York, London, or Nashville too. But LA is special. The author paints it as a literal minefield of clout chasers.
It is brutal out there. The quote that really stood out to me was, every dinner date feels like a networking opportunity.
It's so true.
You're sitting there trying to have a genuine romantic moment, maybe order some nice wine, and the questions inevitably shift to, so who have you worked with? Or, can you get me into this specific party on Friday?
It's highly transactional dating. The source breaks it down by gender dynamics too, noting that men are often pursuing proximity to success and women are often interested in connections and direct access. But the core issue remains the same. You are being viewed as a come-up, not a human being.
That exact phrase, viewed as a come-up, is chilling. It implies that their affection is completely conditional on your utility. As long as you can provide access, you're loved.
And the author has seen the real-world fallout of this. They mention these heartbreaking stories of partners just completely disappearing the moment a career hits a rough patch.
Yeah.
Or marriages completely dissolving when the husband stopped producing top 10 hits and pivoted to something less glamorous, like composing. It's the inherent danger of building a personal life in a city built entirely on transactions. It forces you to constantly question, do they love me or do they love my access?
Which is just a terrifying headspace to be living in constantly. It breeds paranoia.
Yeah.
But let's say you navigate all that. Let's say you actually find a real partner. You settle down, maybe you have a few kids. Now you are facing what the author calls the impossible equation.
This was perhaps the most poignant part of the source material for me, honestly. The central question is, how do you be a present father or partner while simultaneously maintaining a high-level career? Because the music industry simply does not care about your child's soccer game.
No, it doesn't.
The industry demands 110% all the time.
We always hear that you can have it all speech in modern culture, but this author says point blank, no, you can't.
The author's answer is stark. They say something is always going to suffer. That is the hard truth. If you are locked in the studio until 4 a.m. every single night to finish an album, you are not reading bedtime stories to your kids.
You can't be in two places at once.
Right. The author admits to missing birthdays, missing major anniversaries. They clearly carry that guilt. But they offer a philosophy that I think is really powerful for anyone in this position. They say, presence matters more than perfection.
Can you expand on that a bit? Because presence can be a bit abstract. What does that look like practically for a producer who is working 14-hour days?
It means accepting that you can't be there 204/7, so when you are there, you have to be all in.
No half measures.
Exactly. An
Yeah.
hour of undivided attention, meaning the phone is down, no checking mix notes, no texting managers, is worth infinitely more than a whole day of being physically in the room but mentally checked out. It's about quality control of your time, essentially.
The source also lists some non-negotiables to help with this. Like, they specifically say Sunday dinner is sacred.
Right. Rituals anchor the family. If the family knows that no matter what crazy stuff happens during the week, Sunday night is exclusively for us, they can endure the chaos much better. Another key strategy they mention is the communication of seasons.
I really like this concept, explaining that the chaos isn't permanent.
Exactly. You have to explicitly explain to your family the difference between grinding for us, like when an album is in major crunch time, and just avoiding coming home.
Right, framing the narrative.
If they know it's a distinct season, like, hey, for the next 3 weeks, I am in intense album mode, but right after that, we are going on vacation, they can handle it. It becomes a shared family mission rather than them feeling like abandonment.
And I also really like the idea of integration from the text. Bring the kids to the studio sometimes. Let your partner hear the rough track before it officially drops.
Yes. Don't make your career the enemy of your family life. Make them feel like they are an active part of the success, not the victims of your ambition. If they feel ownership over the wins, they will support you through the grind.
Okay, now we have to pivot. We've talked a lot about love and family, but the author takes a very sharp turn toward the end into the business of heartbreak. Because, unfortunately, the stats in this industry aren't great.
No, they really aren't. The source mentions the divorce rate among music professionals is absolutely staggering. And interestingly, the author notes it's usually not about infidelity, which is the standard cliche.
Right.
It's about the grind itself, the relentless pressure, the sheer inability to sustain a deep connection over long periods of absence.
So when that split inevitably happens,
Yeah.
things get very legal. And the author is very, very firm about this part. You need to protect your assets. And by assets, we don't just mean who gets the house in the hills. We mean the catalog.
This is where the survival guide aspect really kicks into high gear. The advice is blunt. Get a prenup. It sounds completely unromantic, but the author frames it as pure business survival. You have to protect your publishing.
Because publishing is forever money. If you wrote a massive hit in 2026, that song is paying you for the rest of your natural life.
Yeah.
You simply cannot have half of your future royalties walking out the door just because you didn't want to sign a piece of paper.
And it goes way beyond just prenups, too. The source advises documenting absolutely everything. If you buy a vintage Newman microphone during the marriage, keep the receipt.
Put it in a folder.
Yes. If you do a joint venture on a track with your spouse, which actually happens a lot, get it in a writing immediately. Because, as the author warns, the person who loved you will become a total stranger in divorce court.
Man, that line gave me chills when I read it. It's so cold. But anyone who has actually been through a messy breakup knows it is 100% true. Emotions run so high, and suddenly that vintage synth collection isn't just cool gear anymore. It's leverage. It's a bargaining chip.
It's a harsh reality to face. When love leaves the room, the lawyers enter. And the author is very specific about the mental health aspect here, too. An industry divorce is almost always public. People in the scene talk. Your professional reputation can take a massive hit.
So what's the play there? Just hide out?
The author advises keeping your inner circle extremely tight and, crucially, never negotiating while you are emotional. Lawyer up and shut up. Don't vent on social media. Don't subtweet your ex in your new lyrics. Well, actually, hold on.
Well, wait a minute. That actually brings us to the silver lining here.
Yeah.
Or at least the way the author says to spin it. They mention reframing the pain.
Right. Use it as fuel.
Yes.
Some of the greatest albums in music history came directly from intense heartbreak. Think Rumors by Fleetwood Mac or 21 by Adele. The core advice is to channel that absolute devastation directly into the work. Let the loss refine your sound. It's a very classic producer mindset. You take the negative energy and you literally turn it into audio.
It really is. The mindset of, well, make it a hit record. If you're going to suffer anyway, you might as well get a platinum plaque out of the deal.
It sounds a bit cynical on the surface, but it's actually a legitimate form of therapy. It's sublimation.
So, looking back at this entire deep dive today, we've covered a massive amount of ground. We've seen how the muse offers deep, unspoken understanding, but inevitably breeds competition and jealousy. We've seen how the outsider offers genuine peace, but requires constant translation and reassurance.
And we've seen that the environment itself, specifically the transactional LA scene, is often deeply hostile to genuine human connection. It requires a lot of sharp discernment to figure out who is real and who is just playing you. And finally, that legal armor is non-negotiable.
The author wraps up the piece with a sentiment that I think is really the emotional core of this whole discussion. They say that success in love requires the exact same level of dedication as your craft. You have to actively work at it.
Yes. The studio will always be there, the label deadlines will always be there, but a person who genuinely loves you through that specific chaos, that is where. That is the true limited edition release.
I really love that comparison. And I want to leave you, the listener, with the author's final provocative thought. It's something to really mull over the next time you're locking up the studio at 3 a.m. You spend your entire life protecting your masters. You lock them down, you back them up on 3 different hard drives, you insure them, you will fight for them in court. Why aren't you protecting your relationship with that exact same intensity?
That really is the question.
It really is. Now get back to that mix.
The deadline won't wait.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.
From yard to the world. Knowledge, culture, sound.
Turn it up. Feel a fire inside.
Tune in now.
It's up full vibe. It's up full vibe.
Up full vibes. Podcast.